On my way, I found a woman trapped in a blizzard. She asked, "How do I repay you?" The road was already quiet when he left that evening. The sky was heavy with gray clouds and the air felt sharp, like it could cut through skin. He checked the fuel, adjusted his scarf, and told himself he would be home before the worst of the weather arrived. The radio had warned about snow, but warnings were common in this region, and most of the time they passed without much trouble. He had driven this road many times before. It was long, lonely, and surrounded by fields and low hills, but it usually felt safe. As he drove, the first snowflakes began to fall. At first they were light and slow, floating down like feathers. He barely noticed them. His mind was busy with simple thoughts: what to eat for dinner, whether the heater at home was still working, and how good it would feel to sit down and rest. The tires rolled smoothly, and the road stretched ahead like a pale ribbon, but within minutes the snow grew thicker. The flakes became heavy and fast, hitting the windshield with force. He turned on the wipers, then turned them up higher. The radio signal started to crackle, breaking into short, unclear sounds. The world outside slowly disappeared behind a white curtain. Trees turned into shadows. Road signs faded until they were hard to read. He slowed the car, gripping the steering wheel more tightly. His heart beat a little faster. He told himself to stay calm. He had driven in snow before. Still, this felt different. The wind began to howl, pushing against the car as if trying to force it off the road. Snow swirled across the ground, covering the lines that showed where the road was. After a while, the cold seemed to creep into his bones, even though the heater was on. The road felt endless. No other cars passed him. No lights appeared ahead or behind. It felt as if he was the only person left in the world, moving slowly through a frozen place. That was when he saw it. At first, it looked like a strange shape on the side of the road. He thought it might be a broken sign or a pile of snow pushed aside by the wind. He almost drove past it. Then a small blinking light caught his eye, faint, weak, but steady. Hazard lights. He eased his foot off the gas and leaned forward, trying to see better. As he drew closer, the shape became clear. It was a car, pulled off the road, half covered in snow. One side was buried deeper than the other, as if it had slid and stopped suddenly. Snow had piled up against the doors and the wheels. His first thought was to keep driving. Stopping in a blizzard was dangerous. He knew that. The road was slick, and pulling over could lead to his own car getting stuck. There was also the fear that came with stopping for strangers on a lonely road. He had heard stories that made people cautious, stories that made people look away. He slowed down even more, his hands shaking slightly. His eyes moved from the road ahead to the stranded car and back again. The storm was getting worse by the second. Wind pushed snow across the road, and visibility dropped so low that he could barely see 10 meters ahead. If someone else will stop, he thought, they might already have help. But there were no other cars, no headlights, no signs of anyone else coming. As he passed the stranded car, he glanced to the side window. For just a moment through the blowing snow, he saw a face behind the glass. Pale, still, watching. Something tightened in his chest. He drove a few meters past the car, then stopped. His heart raced. The engine hummed loudly in the silence of the storm. He sat there, breathing hard, his thoughts fighting each other. One voice told him to keep going, to think of his own safety. Another voice reminded him what it felt like to be alone and helpless. He sighed and shifted the car into park. Pulling on his gloves, he opened the door. The cold hit him instantly, sharp and brutal. Wind rushed in, filling the car with snow. He stepped out and his boots sank deep into the snow beside the road. It was deeper than he had expected. The storm roared around him. Snow stung his face and he had to shield his eyes with his arm. Each step toward the stranded car was slow and heavy. His legs felt stiff, and the cold bit through his clothes. As he got closer, he could see the car more clearly. The windows were fogged from the inside. The engine was off. Snow clung to the sides like thick white paint. He knocked on the driver's window hard enough to be heard over the wind. At first there was no response. He knocked again, louder this time. His heart jumped. For a brief moment fear flashed through his mind. What if no one was inside? What if he was too late? Then the window cleared slightly and a pair of eyes looked back at him. Wide, afraid. He leaned closer, shouting through the glass that he was there to help. The door unlocked with a soft click, and the woman inside pushed it open just a little. Snow rushed in and she pulled back quickly, coughing from the cold air. She looked exhausted. Her face was pale, her lips dry, and her hands shook as she tried to hold onto the door. She wore a thin jacket that was clearly not meant for this kind of weather. Strands of her hair stuck to her face, damp with sweat or melted snow. "My car won't start," she said, her voice weak and uneven. I tried everything." He told her it was okay, that she was not alone anymore. His words felt small against the noise of the storm, but he hoped they helped. He glanced around, checking the road, checking the sky, trying to think clearly. "How long have you been here?" he asked. She looked away as if trying to remember. "I don't know, it feels like hours," he nodded. The situation was serious. Staying here much longer could be dangerous for both of them. He tried the car door, but it barely moved. Snow had packed tightly against it. He pushed harder, straining his shoulder until it opened enough for her to step out. She hesitated, fear clear in her eyes as she looked at the storm outside. He held out his hand. After a second, she took it. Her hand was icy cold, and he felt a shock of worry run through him. Slowly, carefully, he guided her out of the car. She stumbled once and he steadied her. The wind nearly knocked them over, and snow filled the air so thick it was hard to breathe. "We need to get you warm," he said, raising his voice. He pointed toward his car, barely visible through the white storm. "My car is close," she nodded, too tired to argue. Step by step, they moved through the snow. Each step felt heavier than the last. His legs burned and his lungs ached from the cold air. When they finally reached his car, he opened the passenger door and helped her inside. The warmth from the heater wrapped around them like a blanket. She sank into the seat, closing her eyes for a moment. Her breathing was fast and shallow. He closed the door quickly to keep the heat in, then walked around to the driver's side, his body already stiff from the cold. Once inside, he turned the heater up and watched her carefully. She hugged herself, trying to stop the shaking. He took off his coat and gently placed it over her shoulders. She looked at him in surprise, then whispered a quiet thank you. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The storm raged outside, hitting the car with force. Snow piled against the doors. The world beyond the windshield was nothing but white. He knew one thing for sure as he sat there, hands still trembling on the steering wheel. Stopping had been the right choice. Whatever happened next, he could not imagine leaving her out there alone. And as the blizzard continued to close in around them, he realized that this night was no longer just a drive home. It was the beginning of something neither of them had expected. The heater slowly filled the car with warm air. At first, the warmth felt strange after the sharp cold outside. The woman sat still, her hands shaking as she held the coat around her shoulders. He watched her from the corner of his eye, worried but trying not to show it. He had no medical training, but he knew cold like that could be dangerous. "Take slow breaths," he said gently. "You're safe now." She nodded, though her lips trembled. Her eyes moved around the car as if she was trying to understand where she was. The sound of the storm was loud, hitting the car again and again. The wind pushed snow against the windows, making it feel like they were trapped inside a moving wall of white. After a few minutes, her shaking eased just a little. She took a deeper breath and looked at him properly for the first time. Her eyes were tired but alert, filled with relief and fear at the same time. "Thank you," she said again, this time stronger. "I didn't know if anyone would stop," he nodded, keeping his voice calm. "I almost didn't," he admitted honestly, "but I couldn't leave you there." She looked down at her hands. I'm glad you didn't. He reached for the glove box and pulled out a small bottle of water, handing it to her. Sip it slowly, he said. It will help. She did as he said, taking small sips. The color slowly returned to her face. Outside, the storm showed no sign of stopping. The road was completely hidden now, covered by drifting snow. My car just stopped, she said quietly. One moment it was fine, and then the engine died. I tried calling for help, but my phone ran out of power. I kept the lights on as long as I could. He listened carefully. Every word told him how close things had come to going very wrong. He glanced at the dashboard clock. She had likely been there much longer than she realized. We can't stay here too long, he said after a moment. But it's safer than your car. We need to find a way out. She looked at him, worry returning to her eyes. Can we drive in this? He paused. The truth was, he wasn't sure. The road was bad, but staying still in a growing storm could be worse. He thought of the map in his head, trying to remember what lay ahead. There's a small town not too far, he said slowly. If the road isn't blocked, we might reach it. If not, we'll have to wait until the storm eases. She nodded, trusting his judgment because she had little choice. Trust between strangers is fragile, but in moments like this, it grows fast. He checked the mirrors and turned the wheel slightly, easing the car back onto the road. The tires slipped at first and his heart jumped. He slowed his movements, keeping everything steady. The car moved forward inch by inch. Visibility was terrible. The headlights cut a narrow path through the snow, but beyond that was nothing. He leaned forward, eyes fixed ahead, muscles tight. Every sound felt louder: the wind, the tires, the engine. The woman sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, watching the road as if her attention could help guide them. After a long silence, she spoke again. I was going to visit my sister, she said softly. I almost turned back when the snow started, but I didn't want to disappoint her. He nodded. We all make choices like that, he said. Sometimes they turn out fine, sometimes they don't. She gave a small, sad smile. I kept telling myself it would be okay. The road curved slightly and the car slid for a brief second. He corrected quickly, heart pounding. She gasped but said nothing. Minutes passed slowly. Each one felt heavy. The storm seemed endless, as if the world beyond the car no longer existed. Yet inside the car, something strange happened. The fear slowly changed into quiet focus. They were no longer strangers sharing silence. They were two people facing the same challenge. You didn't have to stop, she said suddenly. Most people wouldn't. He thought about that. Maybe, he said, but I hope someone would stop for me. She looked at him, studying his face, then nodded. I hope so too. They drove on. Snowbanks rose on either side of the road, making it feel like a narrow tunnel. The wind pushed from the side, testing his control. His hands ached from gripping the wheel, but he didn't loosen his hold. After a long while, he noticed something ahead, a faint glow barely visible through the snow. Do you see that? He asked. She leaned forward. Yes, she said, hope lighting her voice. As they moved closer, the shape became clearer. A small building stood near the road, its lights dim but steady. A sign hung above the entrance, swinging slightly in the wind. It looked old, tired, but welcoming. Relief washed over him. That looks like a motel, he said. Or at least a place to shelter. He slowed as he turned off the road, careful not to skid. The car rolled into the parking area, snow crunching under the tires. He parked near the building and turned off the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. The storm was still loud, but the building blocked some of the wind. The lights felt like a promise: warmth, safety, rest. We made it, she said, her voice shaking, but this time with relief. He smiled, feeling tension leave his shoulders. Yes, he said, we did. He stepped out first, checking the ground. Snow was deep but manageable. He helped her out of the car, steadying her as she walked. Her legs were weak, but she managed. They moved toward the door together. Each step felt lighter now. Inside, warm air greeted them. The small lobby was simple: an old desk, a few chairs, and a heater humming loudly. A person behind the desk looked up in surprise. The woman took a deep breath, finally able to relax. She turned to him, her eyes shining with emotion. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stopped," she said. He shrugged gently, not knowing how to respond. He only knew that the storm outside no longer felt so threatening. They were safe for now. As they stood there, snow still falling beyond the glass doors, he realized that the hardest part of the night was over, but something told him the meaning of this meeting was far from finished. The lobby felt quiet after the storm outside. The heater made a soft humming sound, and the lights were warm but not bright. The woman sat down on one of the chairs, breathing slowly now, as if her body was finally letting go of fear. He stood nearby for a moment, unsure what to do with his hands, then sat across from her. The person at the desk gave them both a calm look and said they could rest there until the storm eased. There was no rush, no pressure. That alone felt like a gift. He thanked them quietly and returned to his seat. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable. It felt earned. Outside, the wind still pushed snow against the windows, but inside, time seemed to slow. She pulled the coat tighter around herself and looked down at the floor. "I thought I was done for," she said softly. "I tried to stay calm, but after a while it gets hard to think." He nodded. "Fear does that," he said. "It makes everything feel smaller." She looked up at him, meeting his eyes. "When I saw you stop, I wasn't sure it was real." He smiled slightly. "I wasn't sure either." That made her laugh, a quiet sound but real. It felt like the first true sign that she was going to be okay. They talked slowly at first. Simple things. Where they were coming from, where they were going. Nothing too deep. But as the minutes passed, the words came easier. The storm outside gave them no reason to hurry. She told him about her work, how she spent most days indoors, and how this trip had been a rare break from routine. He told her about his long drives, how the road was familiar to him, even when it was empty. "I've driven through bad weather before," he said, "but tonight felt different." She nodded. It felt like the world disappeared. They both glanced toward the window. Snow pressed against the glass like a moving wall. The road they had driven on was no longer visible. It was strange to think they had been out there just minutes ago. "Do you ever think about how small choices change things?" she asked after a pause. He thought for a moment. "All the time," he said, "especially the ones we almost don't make." She lowered her eyes. "I almost didn't pull over when the car started acting strange. I told myself it would keep going. I was wrong." He didn't say anything right away. Then he said, "I almost didn't stop." Her head lifted quickly. "Really?" "Yes," he said honestly. "I was scared. I didn't know what I would find." She studied his face, then nodded slowly. "I understand that." The honesty between them felt important. It made the moment real. No hero, no drama, just two people admitting fear. Time passed. Someone brought them hot drinks. The warmth spread through his hands as he held the cup. He saw her relax more with every sip. Color returned to her face and the tightness in her shoulders eased. "Thank you," she said again, quietly. "You've said that already," he replied gently. "I know," she said. "But it still feels small compared to what you did." He shook his head. "I just did what anyone should," she smiled, but there was something thoughtful in her eyes. "Not everyone does." They sat there, listening to the wind. At some point, the sound outside softened. The storm was still strong, but it no longer felt angry, more like tired. He checked the time. Hours had passed without him noticing. Strangely, he didn't feel annoyed or worried about the delay. Being there felt right. "Do you think we'll be able to leave soon?" she asked. "Maybe," he said, "but there's no rush." She nodded, then hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What made you stop?" He leaned back in his chair, thinking. "I saw your face through the window," he said slowly. "For a second it reminded me of someone I knew. Someone who needed help once." She didn't push for more. She simply nodded, respecting the space. "I'm glad you did," she said. Later they stood near the window together, watching the snow fall. The storm no longer felt like an enemy. It felt like something that had passed through their lives and left a mark. Eventually, the desk clerk told them the worst had moved on. The road was still difficult but safer now. The motel had rooms available if needed. She looked at him, unsure. "I don't know if I should keep going tonight," he understood. "You don't have to," he said. "Rest is important." She took a breath. "I think I'll stay. That's a good choice." They gathered their things. Outside, the wind had eased and the snow fell gently now. The world looked different, cleaner, quieter. At the door of her room, she turned to him. "I don't know how to say this properly," she said, "but what you did tonight matters to me, more than you know." He met her gaze. "I'm just glad you're safe." She paused, then asked softly, "Can we talk again in the morning, before you leave?" He smiled. "I'd like that." As he walked back to his own room, he felt something settle in his chest. The night had been long and hard, but it had also brought clarity. He realized that some moments stay with you, not because they are loud or dramatic, but because they remind you who you want to be. And as he lay down, listening to the quiet after the storm, he knew that the question she would ask next would change the meaning of this night in ways he could not yet imagine. Morning arrived quietly. The storm had spent itself during the night, leaving behind a soft white world that looked calm and clean. Pale light slipped through the thin curtains, touching the walls and floor. He woke slowly, unsure for a moment where he was. Then the memory of the road, the snow, and the woman came back to him. He sat up and listened. No wind, no loud noise, just silence. After washing his face with cold water, he put on his jacket and stepped into the hallway. The motel felt different in daylight, less lonely, more ordinary. Yet the night before still felt close, like something fragile that could break if he thought too hard about it. He saw her near the lobby window. She stood with a cup in her hands, looking outside. Her posture was relaxed now. The fear from the night before was gone, replaced by quiet thought. She turned when she heard his steps. Her face brightened. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," he replied. "How are you feeling?" "Much better," she said honestly. "I slept more than I expected." "That's good," he said. "You needed rest." They stood there for a moment, unsure who should speak next. The space between them felt gentle, not awkward. The storm had pushed them together, but now they stood on calm ground. "Would you like to sit?" she asked, motioning to the chairs. They sat near the window. Outside, someone was clearing snow from the parking area. The sound of a shovel scraping ice felt comforting, like proof that life was moving again. She looked at him carefully, as if choosing her words. "I've been thinking," she said. He nodded. "About last night?" "Yes," she said. "About everything." He waited, giving her time. "I don't think I fully understood how serious it was until this morning," she continued. "If you hadn't stopped, I don't know how long I would have lasted out there." He felt a tightness in his chest. "I'm glad I did," he said quietly. She took a breath. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about." She paused, then asked, "How do I repay you?" The question hung between them. He blinked, surprised. "You don't need to," he said quickly. "I know," she replied, "but I feel like saying thank you isn't enough." He shook his head gently. "You don't owe me anything." She studied his face, searching for something. "You gave up your safety, your time, you took a risk." He leaned back slightly. "I made a choice," he said, "that's all." "But choices matter," she said softly, "and this one changed my life." He didn't respond right away. He had never thought of it that way. To him, it had been a moment, a decision made in seconds. To her, it was something much larger. "I didn't do it for anything in return," he said at last. "I would hope someone would do the same for me." She nodded slowly, but she didn't look satisfied. "Still," she said, "I need to express it somehow." He smiled, a little unsure. "You already did. You're here. You're safe." She looked down at her hands, then back up. "Can I at least buy you breakfast?" He laughed quietly. "That I won't refuse." They walked to a small table where simple food was laid out. Nothing fancy, just warm bread, fruit, and hot drinks. They ate slowly, talking about small things, the road conditions, the weather, plans for the day. At one point, she looked at him again, her expression more serious. "I want you to know something," she said. "What you did reminded me that kindness still exists. I had started to forget that." He felt something shift inside him. "I think we all forget sometimes," he said. She smiled. "Yes, but then someone stops." After breakfast, they stepped outside together. The cold was still there, but it felt different now, gentle, manageable. The sky was clear and the sun reflected off the snow, making everything shine. Her car was being checked by someone from the town. It would need help, but it was no longer a danger. She turned to him near the parking area. "I guess this is where we go our separate ways," she said. "I guess so," he replied. She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. She tore out a page and wrote something quickly. Then she handed it to him. "My number," she said. "Not because you owe me anything, just because I'd like to hear from you someday." He accepted it, surprised but pleased. "I'd like that," he said. She looked relieved. "Good." They stood there, unsure how to end the moment. The night had connected them in a way that didn't need big words. Before turning away, she said one last thing. "You asked me last night to stay warm. You stayed with me. That mattered." He nodded. "Take care of yourself," he said. "You too," she replied. As he got into his car, he glanced at the piece of paper in his hand. He didn't know if they would ever meet again. But he knew something had changed inside him. He drove away slowly, the road clear now. Snow lined the edges, quiet and still. The danger was gone, but the meaning remained. Behind him, she watched his car disappear down the road. She placed a hand over her chest, feeling gratitude settle deep inside. Repayment, she realized, was not about returning a favor. It was about carrying the moment forward, about letting it shape how you live. And as the distance grew between them, both understood the same truth. Some kindness cannot be repaid, only passed on. The road felt different as he drove away from the motel. It was the same path he had taken the night before, but now it looked calm and open. Snow rested quietly on the sides and the sky was clear. The danger was gone, yet his mind was full. He kept thinking about the night, about the choice he had made, and about the woman he had met by chance. As the car moved forward, memories returned in small pieces. The blinking lights in the storm, the fear in her eyes, the moment he almost drove past. He realized how close everything had come to being very different. One small decision had changed two lives, even if only for a short time. When he reached home, the house felt quiet and warm. He placed his keys down and sat for a while without moving. Usually, after a long drive, he would rush to make food or turn on the television. This time he didn't. He needed to sit with his thoughts. Days passed. Life slowly returned to its normal rhythm. He went back to work, ran errands, and followed his usual routine. From the outside, nothing had changed, but inside something had shifted. He found himself paying more attention to people, to small moments. When someone spoke, he listened more carefully. When he saw someone struggling, he noticed instead of looking away. The storm had passed, but its lesson stayed. Sometimes, late at night, he thought about her. He wondered if she had reached her sister safely, if her car was fixed, if she had returned to her normal life. He held the piece of paper with her number in his wallet, unsure if he should ever use it. Weeks went by. One evening, as snow began to fall again, lighter this time, he finally made a choice. He took out his phone and sent a simple message. He didn't overthink it. "I hope you're doing well, I just wanted to check in." He stared at the screen after sending it, unsure how he felt. Nervous maybe, or hopeful. The reply came later that night. "I'm doing well. I think about that night often. Thank you for reaching out." He smiled without realizing it. They began to exchange messages now and then. Nothing rushed, nothing heavy, just small updates. A comment about the weather, a short story from the day. Over time, the messages grew a little longer, more personal, more open. One day, she wrote, "That night changed how I see people." He understood exactly what she meant. Months later, they met again, not by chance this time, but by choice. They met in a quiet place, far from storms and empty roads. The meeting felt easy, like continuing a conversation that had never truly stopped. They talked about life, about fear, about the strange ways people cross paths. Neither of them tried to make the moment more than it was. They didn't need to. As time went on, the story of the blizzard became something he carried with him, not as a dramatic tale, but as a reminder. A reminder that kindness does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, often when it is least expected. He never thought of himself as a hero. He never told the story to impress anyone. When people asked why he stopped that night, he always gave the same answer. It was the right thing to do, and that was enough. Some nights when the wind picked up and snow touched the windows, he thought back to that road, to the moment when he chose to stop, and each time he felt the same calm certainty. Life is made of small moments, small choices, and sometimes the greatest change comes not from what we plan, but from what we choose to do for someone else. The storm had ended long ago, but the kindness born inside it continued, quiet, steady, and lasting.